but the Barbie movie is funny. It's got some poignant messages, and it's
my God. The last thing I want, not only do I not want a Barbie movie, I definitely don't want a Barbie movie with messages in it. You got me fucked up. Ain't nobody want to see this movie. Other than, I guess, the 800 billion people who went to see it. You got me fucked up. Good luck, Earth. Good luck, Earth. Good luck, Earth. Welcome to Raw Food, East Coast to West Coast. Cal grads, did I mention that? Having a conversation as always and catching up on what's going on this weird planet called Earth. And on this episode of it, we are watching the crazy unfold once again. Jay, would you like to introduce us into this episode's crazy for the week?
This might be a little crazier than usual. We are going full tilt lightning round. We've got a whole lot to cover.
Quickly.
I know we do enjoy our deep dives, but this time we want to just do a couple of quick hits and not just a whole lot, because there's been a lot going on, and we want to get into it with a couple of these things, with some of these things. Where do you want to start? We got the whole sports thing. I can jump on that, or we can jump right into the other things.
Sports. You start with sports, and we'll parlay into the rest. Take it away.
Sports have been very interesting. The Women's World Cup just kicked off. Team USA just won 3-0 over Vietnam. Some people expected Team USA to win by even more. There was a penalty kick by Alex Morgan, who's also a Cal grad, where she missed it and then also missed the rebound. Some people are saying the team is nervous. If you don't know, Team USA is going for their 5th overall World Cup title and their 3rd in a row. 3-peat would be huge. This is the generation of people that were inspired by the 1999 World Cup that everybody remembers in the US because we hosted that as well. I think everybody needs to relax. It's not like the Vietnamese team is just some random girls that they just pulled from Vietnam. They had to qualify for the World Cup. So the fact that we didn't blow them out by 10 points should not signal any kind of issue with this team. If people are nervous, they deserve to be nervous. They're at the fucking World Cup.
It's just an excuse to criticize women. They won. Whether they won by a minute, a second, a point, 40. The point is that they won. They continue their winning streak. And while doing so, continue to fight for equal pay for women. There's nothing negative to be said about those women. They're holding it down morally, ethically, and professionally. And anybody who's criticizing that has either not accomplished what they've accomplished. So that's their living room perspective, or they just straight up aren't valuing the achievements of women.
Thank you. People, it's a bunch of hot take artists that are just looking for something to say, just looking to have some criticism. Let's move on.
And we're moving on to not give any of those people the airtime and keep the shine on the women's team.
Faith Kipyegon just shattered the women's mile record, running a 4:07. Okay, shattered it by about 4.5 seconds, actually. The previous women's mile record was 4:12. Okay, why is this interesting? Faith Kipyegon also has 2 other world records that she set this year: the 1,500 meter and I believe the 2 mile. Okay, forgive me if I'm wrong. It might have been the 3,000 meter. It might have been 1,500 and 3,000 meter, actually. But that's amazing that one woman would come in and set 3 world records in the same year and absolutely smash the world record for the mile right now. The world championships in track and field are coming up. We will have more to talk about that later, but congratulations to Faith Kipyegon. She is a runner from Kenya. She's awesome. What she's doing has never been seen before.
Excellent.
Randomly came across the WFA, Women's Football Alliance. That is an American football league where women play typical tackle American football, but it's not in that bullshit powder puff shit that we've seen before, where they just give them baby blue or pink shoulder pads and then they give them baby blue or pink panties and then have them run around. No, this was tackle football with full pads. And they just had the championship game. The Boston Renegades completed their undefeated season to win that against the Slam, who I think are from St. Louis. Blew them out, actually. And I've said this for the longest. I think people would be, some people at least would get into that. But what I would love to see is go recruit these girls that run track. Go recruit these girls who play women's rugby. Come on. Where are they? When you go and get them, because everybody knows that girl or that team of girls who were, ran the relay sprints in high school or whatever. Maybe they're not professional track runners, but they are blazingly fast. They're faster than a lot of the guys. They would absolutely crush it in women's football, especially when you get these sisters from the South, where they grow up playing football with their brothers and cousins and shit. Just wait. I believe this is the beginning of something very interesting.
Okay. Then we'll have to keep an eye on that. Moving on.
Last but not least, the X Games are happening right now. It's an annual action sports competition that ESPN puts on. I'm a huge X Games fan. I watched X Games every year when I was a kid. And it just kind of seems like it's fell out of the public consciousness. Aside from a handful of skateboarders who go viral every once in a while and have become influencers, does anyone give a shit about the X Games anymore?
I guess the fact that we're asking the question speaks volumes.
Yeah. Back in the day, the X Games were a huge deal. Some notable moments, of course, Tony Hawk hitting the 900. Travis Pastrana, when they had the X Games in Los Angeles, right by the beach, like right on the water, Travis Pastrana jumped his motorcycle off this gigantic, 100-foot ramp in the middle of a course. So in the middle of competition, he just, at the end of his run, he dumps it in the ocean. He just jumps all the way into the ocean. It was a huge deal, especially back then. Would have been an amazingly viral moment if social media had been around at that point. Also, right. Travis Pastrana hitting the first double backflip. The X Games has been where people tend to push their various action sport forward. Ty Craig hitting the first double backflip on skate vert. Going all the way back to the Yasutoko brothers, Katie and Eito Yasutoko, and all the things that they were able to do to just expand aggressive inline skating in Japan. And I know I messed up one of their names, but the point is the Yasutoko brothers were awesome. This was groundbreaking stuff. And I don't know, I wonder if just some of these action sports have been pushed all the way to their limit at this point. And so because there's not the equivalent of new world records or whatever being hit, maybe it's kind of fallen off, or maybe since there's social media, if we want to see a really cool trick, we'll see it on social media, but we don't need to see it at the X Games.
Right. I mean, I'm more of a UFC kind of girl. So to me, the X Games wouldn't be of any interest because I think UFC is just bringing so much more to the table.
That makes sense. And also, you can't really see a UFC fight on social media until after it happens.
Right. And even so, you usually just get the highlights. It's hard to get the whole fight. I think the popularity of it, the marketing behind it, I think Mr. Dane, who is the kind of head honcho behind it, has done an excellent job of marketing it. It's a respected athletic industry. It brings in a lot of interesting characters. Obviously Joe Rogan's one of the people who built a personality and a career from there and still participates as a judge, I believe. So when you've got so much other things going on, especially when it comes to martial arts, I think the X Games is going to have to up their marketing or strategize differently.
Yeah, especially when it comes to doing tricks rather than combat, right?
Right.
Oh, hey, I did this really cool trick. If you recorded it when you did it in practice, before the X Games, then you're going to post that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really special if you did it again at the X Games. We saw you when you did this, hey, first ever thing here, So I think that also says something about media and live media and, the nature of different types of sports. If your sport is about tricks rather than combat, then it's a bit harder to get people to want to stand up and pay attention to it. Right. That's it for Raw Food Sports, unless you had anything else. There's some Draymond Green stuff going on with the Warriors, but we can get into that when we talk about just do a whole recap of the NBA offseason and talk about going into the next NBA season, which will be very exciting to see. I will also just say I watched that Steph Curry documentary. It is really good. Ryan Coogler produced that. Ryan Coogler grew up in Oakland, so it was really cool to see him partner with Steph Curry for that. Definitely worth checking out on Apple TV.
Sweet. Moving into political topics. There is a growing movement to recall the new African-American DA, Pamela Price, who is working in the Alameda County, supported by Assistant DA Otis Bruce.
Mhm.
They have been accused of, I guess, different degrees of racism due to the 2 deaths of Asian Americans in the community.
Mm-hmm.
The Pamela Price team is saying that it's based on racism because she is the first African-American female to hold the role. The contradictory position from the Asian American community is that since she has taken the position, she has been dropping charges against people who are murderers and are guilty or allegedly guilty of egregious crimes, which is causing a further rift between the Asian American and African American community in the Bay Area. These are pretty recent charges, so we will stay abreast of how that unfolds and see how this recall plays out. As of right now, the recall has less than 5,000 signatures, so it doesn't seem to be a fire that they need to put out at the moment, but it is a candle that is being fanned, if you will. Yeah. And let's not forget how the Bay Area has become a hot seat for recalls, having recalled 2 or 3 school board members from the San Francisco School Board who the Asian American community felt was not prioritizing the issues that was moving the education needle forward for students in the area, especially during COVID, and were rather focused on changing the names of schools that had slave names or racist names or
not even slave names. They wanted to change like Lincoln High School. If you wanted, now, if we had a school named after Robert E. Lee, go ahead, fucking change it. But like Lincoln, come on, you guys. Not saying the guy was
you ain't gonna win that one with this country. So regardless of what position you take on it, I mean, there are certain presidents that are just near and dear to this country. Lincoln's one of them. Washington's one of them. I mean, you pick that fight. Good luck, because then you're losing to an institution. I heard a funny quote from a movie the other day. You're losing to an institution that won 2 wars and prints its own money. You ain't gonna win.
I love that quote. I love that quote. That is exactly what it is. If you want to have an argument about maybe putting an asterisk by Lincoln, or if you want to put a plaque that does a full tilt,
rebuttal, it gives a disclaimer, right? If you will,
here's a disclaimer of all the other things we don't like about him. Fine, right. But at the time when the schools were closed in San Francisco, but they were open everywhere else in the Bay Area, the parents wanted you to focus on getting the fucking schools open rather than trying to get rid of this school named after Abraham fucking Lincoln. Can we, just the priorities were a bit off. We did a whole episode on it, and we can maybe link that to this one. I'll go dig it up.
Right. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. And also with regard to keeping an eye on things, Governor DeSantis has once again demonstrated where his focus lies. And although he is distancing himself from the specifics, the revised curriculum regarding African-American history in Florida now includes verbiage that has to demonstrate the personal benefits slaves received from the skills they developed being slaves. What say you, Jay?
Ron DeSantis is just being Ron DeSantis. This is what he does because he doesn't have anything to actually deliver you that will help make your life any better.
None of
Ron
them.
DeSantis is really trying to be more Trump than Trump. And he has decided, I am going to be the most right-wing person in terms of culture war. I'm going to be the furthest right and the loudest culture warrior in the 2024 presidential Republican field.
Right. But what his team is not calculating in is that that's lost momentum due to the economy, due to the landslides in California, due to rising crimes in inner cities. There are other things that are now kind of taking center stage. That guy says woke more than any Black person I've ever met. I don't know what his obsession is with it. It's actually, it's become boring. Yeah. It's boring.
Yeah. He's got nothing else to offer you. So he's just going to talk more about wokeness and shit on and just do more shitting on Black people. And he thinks that's going to bring people in. And yes, when he's preaching to the choir of people that are already in his camp, they're going to applaud very loudly and clap like seals and donate. but it's not going to help you when it comes to winning the Republican nomination. It's definitely not going to help you in a general election.
Right. Because you have to win the country. You have to win the country. Although I wouldn't rule him out either. Kind of like how the media is like, his campaign's a disaster. And yes, he did lay off staff members. He has burned through millions of dollars of money. And yes, his funding has collapsed. But I wouldn't rule him out yet. He's gained a lot of popularity in Staten Island, New York. He's got a lot of popularity in the Carolinas. He's got a lot of popularity in Orange County in California. So there are still pockets and people with deep pockets who do support him. So I wouldn't rule him out just yet. But he is polling higher than Vivek. He is polling higher than Tim Scott. He is polling higher than Nikki Haley. So...
But he should be polling higher than all of them. He's the fucking governor of fucking Florida.
Right. But I feel like his momentum kind of rode on. It's kind of like a similar thing to what happened to Giuliani. You know, he was the king at 9/11. And now, well, like, what do we remember him for? Sweating profusely on TV, dressing in drag several times, and being indicted nonstop. I mean, it's like such a huge fall from grace. And I just feel like DeSantis's marketing strategy seems to be headed in that same direction. Disappointed because he's not an idiot. The man went to law school. You know, it's disappointing, but I mean, people do look, everybody sings for their supper, and he's singing like a canary for his, and he is singing to his base, but his base is not the entire United States. So good luck to him and everybody else running in that campaign.
Yeah. I think Mitt Romney, if Mitt Romney got in the race, would spank him at this point.
I don't think so. This country doesn't know what the deal is with Mormons. They're not going to vote for a Mormon. It took them, look how long it took them to vote for a Catholic.
Well, I'm talking just in the Republican primary, because Romney has won the Republican primary.
Yes,
before.
True. But I don't know if he can do it with this Trump momentum still having steam in it, which is remarkable. But at this point, I almost blame the Democrats for that, because they've indicted this guy so much. I mean, they're turning him from the indicted Don to the Teflon Don. So at this point, it's losing its momentum, because everything on the news is the guy's indicted, the guy's indicted, the guy's indicted. And the next thing you know, he looks like he's gained 5 pounds and he's golfing. So it's kind of an incongruent message if every time you're indicting this guy, you turn around and the guy's at home.
Well, okay, so part of that is Donald Trump himself. Hey, I just got indicted. Hey, everybody, look at me. I'm golfing. I'm not worried about this indictment. Everything's fine. Look at me. Like, oh, we're going to have a thing at Trump, at one of my Trump golf courses. Look at me. That's part of it. And also, he and his team, smartly, they are doing everything they can to push out the trials for everything he's indicted on until after the 2024 election. Because even if he does not win, if a Republican wins, that person will, that Republican president, be it himself or somebody else, will pardon him. And that's what he's banking on.
True. I think a Democratic president would pardon him.
That would be a huge mistake.
I don't think it's for him. I think it's for the position. I think this country holds the presidential position so sacred that they will protect that position at all costs, even if that means losing the battle, which is letting Trump go free.
That was Ford's rationale for pardoning Nixon. But Ford was Nixon's vice president, and Ford completely misread the room. Ford absolutely should not have pardoned Nixon.
No,
and that's why
I think they will. I think they will anyway, and I think it's because they hold the position of presidency so dear that I don't think they want anybody who holds that position to kind of be under the same type of have the same type of response to the law like the rest of us. This is the president. They're not sending a guy who's the president is not going to prison. It's not happening.
I hope so. I hope to see Donald Trump in an actual orange jumpsuit. I
don't think it's going to happen, not even for a second. So I guess we'll have to stay tuned to see how all these indictments play out.
Yeah.
Moving on to this song that has everybody losing their minds. Jay, will you do the introduction? I just finished watching the video. What say you?
Don't you try that in a small town.
Chappelle Show.
I don't like those niggers.
Chappelle Show.
Like me either.
Chappelle Show.
Okay.
What's up with your man? What's up with your song? How you feeling about it? I watched the video like you asked. I wasn't surprised at all. Actually, I was disappointed that there weren't more flags in it. So you tell me, tell our audience what song we are referencing, sir.
All right. So there's a country western singer named Jason Aldean, who is nowhere near as popular as the other titans of country western music, like Tim McGraw and all of those other folks. He really, really needs, he needs something to help himself go viral because he's not that popular of a singer. So, he does what people know they can do. I think, kind of taking the easy way to really go viral by simply leaning into the country western audience and making a song called Try That in a Small Town, which some people say has some dog whistle elements. The song in and of itself, essentially, we can't play it here for copyright purposes, but the song essentially is saying, hey, all these things that y'all do in cities, you wouldn't get away with in small towns. And then
there's truth to that.
Verse,
and you can speak to that being from Texas. So that's why I'm very curious on your thoughts on this.
Right. Being from Texas and living in San Francisco, the shit that people get away with in San Francisco, of course, you wouldn't fucking get away with in a small town in Texas.
Right. But you shouldn't really get away with it anywhere. Nobody's saying you should get away with it anywhere.
Yeah. And then in the second verse, it gets a little bit more explicit, talking about, I got a gun that my grandfather gave me, and making a very clear threat, like, hey, I got a gun, I'm gonna shoot somebody if you try that in a small town. But here's the thing, it never mentions race. It never specifically, says anything about anybody, but it does say like, oh, you could spit in the face of a cop, try that in a small town, beating up old women and all that shit. The things that we see happening in San Francisco, in Oakland, in New York.
Yeah, I mean, it is wrong. I saw the story of the 70-year-old man that was selling items on the street that was like robbed at gunpoint for about $120. The
Don Juan, yes.
As a mentally disabled kid in a third world country. I mean, but that speaks to more. My question is, where are the parents? Why aren't these kids busier? And if you're robbing somebody for $120, that kid needs a hug and a sandwich, apparently. Because what are you going to do with $120? You're not moving the wheel. If life has come down to putting a gun in someone's face for that little money, then I think we have all failed as a society. But for me, it starts with, where are these kids' parents? Because I guarantee you it's somebody under 21. As most of these crimes are lately.
Oh, yeah.
Where are the parents?
And this happened in Oakland. This is one of the reasons why people are trying to recall Pamela Price, because no one believes there's going to be any effort by Oakland police to find these people. And even if there were, Pamela Price would just let them out of jail immediately in the name of restorative justice. Now, people definitely believe in criminal justice reform, some restorative justice elements, but the criminal justice reforms that a lot of people feel like they marched for is not what Pamela Price is doing. What Pamela Price is doing is just getting rid of the concept of accountability, or that's at least how the way her critics feel. Okay. Right. So yes, this 80-year-old man who's he doesn't even have his own ice cream truck. He's literally pushing an ice cream cart with little bells, through the hood, right? Every hood's got the ice cream man, right?
Right.
80-year-old man, he gave the name Don Juan. Not sure if that's his real name. Who knows? Who cares?
Who knows? Who cares?
The point is, why is he doing this at 80 years old? He's got an autistic son in Peru. Okay? And these niggas ran up on him, just pulled over in an SUV that wasn't a hoopty. Like, these did not look like, destitute people at all. Got out with their ski mask on at gunpoint and robbed him for $120 on video. And some people were like, how come the person with the video, taking the video didn't run out there? What the fuck was that person supposed to do? Like, run across the street and yell at these, 3 teenagers or early 20s guys with guns?
Yeah, fuck around and get shot.
But you clearly have the license plate. So even if the plate or the car is stolen, that's at least a clue. So the problem is, this happens every day. The kids now call it bipping. Why the fuck aren't you even trying to bring these people to justice?
Well, I mean, that's part of why this recall thing has taken such a storm. And what makes it remarkable about this recalls is the fact that it's occurring in San Francisco, which prides itself on being progressive, right? And yet last year, let's not forget, they recalled the San Francisco DA. Already. What'd you say?
Yeah. The Pamela Price is getting recalled in Oakland and Alameda County. But yes, she's very close friends with Chesa Boudin, who also was recalled in San Francisco for the same reason.
For the same reasons, crime concerns. I mean, and honestly, the crimes that are going on in these cities is honestly making democratic policies look like trash. You know, everybody I've ever talked to says like you'd be fine with paying taxes if when you walked outside, you didn't feel like you were going to get murdered. There wasn't holes in the street. The lights were on. The highways were rebuilt. The infrastructure was running properly. Then you'd say, hey, we pay high taxes, but God, look at the system that we have. It's running like a ship. But instead, it looks like the fall of Pompeii out there. And yet at the same time, they're talking about raising fares and congestion pricing in New York. And even rich New Yorkers are like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Same thing's happening in San Francisco. They're raising ticketing prices for random stupid shit like parking tickets. They increase the times you have to pay feed a parking meter. Sundays used to be free throughout the entire city. Now they're going to do it. And they're going to do it till like 10 p.m. Whereas like usually all the meters shut off at 6. Stupid shit like that. But we have all kinds of money to throw at other things, but we never seem to have enough money for things that actually matter.
And and I think that's going to hurt the Democrats in the next election. You can't be talking about the Pentagon made a financial mistake and we accidentally sent an extra couple billion over to the Ukraine while like Flint still doesn't have water. And whatever happened to the town with the train explosion with the pollution?
Oh yeah, that was in Ohio, right?
Yeah, whatever happened to that? That news story just disappeared from the news. Those people still lost everything. But we're sending billions of dollars to the Ukraine. And I'll tell you this much, for all this complaining about homeless shelters, there ain't not one Ukrainian in those shelters. So when we're taking in the Ukrainians, where are they going? Because they're not in the shelters.
They're not in the shelters? Interesting.
No, they're not.
Now, there's a big difference between federal, state, and local, right? So like the money that's going to Ukraine is federal, state money is state money, local money is local money. And what we're talking about here is local issues. But
sure, but I do find it interesting that I have not seen, I am familiar with people who work in the homeless services divisions in New York City. And I find it interesting that of the over 24 of them that work in the facilities across the entire city of New York and across all 5 boroughs, there's not a single homeless Ukrainian in one of them.
I wonder if there's enough of a Ukrainian diaspora where they are bringing people in and helping them.
They're creating it
themselves.
Well, they're creating it. So there's also that part.
Yeah. Some of the other lyrics of Try That in a Small Town, because yes, it does resonate with a lot of people because of what's happening in places like Oakland, San Francisco, in New York. Just recently, a man in a non-hood neighborhood in the Haight in San Francisco, he runs a sandwich shop over there. This guy's pissing right on his sandwich shop. He asks the guy not to. The guy socks him in his face and just walks off. And the guy goes on, he does a video with a black eye and he's like, yeah, this guy just punched me, and he said, this is the first time in my life where I feel like, where this could happen. You feel like somebody can do this and there won't be any consequences for it. And he's right. There won't be any consequences. Nobody's going to find that guy who punched him. You can do that in San Francisco and get away with it. But try that in a small town. Go piss on somebody's sandwich shop in a small town and then punch someone who asked you not to do that. Punch the owner of the shop and see what happens. You're not just going to just be able to get away with it. So
you're not.
It's objectively true. Some of the lyrics, sucker punch somebody on the sidewalk, carjack an old lady at a red light, pull a gun on the owner of a liquor store. You think it's cool? Well, act like a fool if you like. These are things that happen.
These are things that happen. And while I understand the undertones of the dog whistle, the LGBT community could say that it's a dog whistle against them as well, right? Like any marginalized group can claim that that's a dog whistle against them. Whether it is or not, I don't know. I don't know this guy. This song is not particularly appealing to me. The video seems pretty typical. It's got a lot of flags in it and guns, and it's pretty much a caricature of everything you would think about a song like this. But I don't think that this is the hill to die on. I think it was strategized and marketed to once again fan the flames of the social cultural war that's going on. And all it's doing is forcing us all to miss the mark on talking about the real issues and actually coming together to form real ideas. Yeah.
And they expertly did it because they never mentioned race. They never mentioned anybody specifically, but they know they're going to get people, especially people on the left and the far left, to react to it as if they burnt a fucking cross, or like as if they tore down a Martin Luther King statue somewhere and shat on it. right?
And we can't inflate those things. These are different things. We can't inflate all those things and then expect people to have a decibel 20 reaction to all of it, because people aren't built that way. You can't keep people in fight flight for an extended period of time, because at a certain point, you just flatline.
Well, that's why people started tuning out all the shit that Trump was doing. The whole tsunami of bullshit theory. Where it's like, if you're telling me I need to be upset and go protest about the latest thing that Trump did, and every week is a new thing I need to be upset about, after a while, I'm going to tune it out, because I can't go to a fucking new protest for every new thing the guy does. People eventually just start tuning it up. And with this thing, I believe we're going to have the very typical, white guy versus black person debate on every cable news show about whether or not the song is racist. And, oh, of course it's racist. Well, show me where it's racist in the lyrics. And they're like, well, the music video, because like the music video has like pictures of like some Black Lives Matter protests and some flags and some guns, which is exactly what you would expect. Right.
That's what I expect. I'm not disputing whether or not there are dog whistles in it. Yeah, there is. But it was intended to sell the song and to allow for actually really kind of reductive conversations when there are real, more important issues, and more importantly, more ideas that we could be discussing with that time. So having said that, we're moving on from this stupid song. Next. Yeah.
Hold on. One quick thing. I do believe that they're going to start playing that song at high school football games this fall. And when they do, it'll be, the team from the inner city playing the team, the small town, they're going to play it. And then the reaction, we're going to have this whole news cycle all over again when like these high schoolers start fighting over it or demanding that you don't play the song because it's racist. And people are going to say that, playing that song when the team with all the black students comes is like burning a cross, which it's not. But
not even close.
The unfortunate piece is this is unfortunately going to be talked about for a lot longer than it deserves.
Right. And unfortunately, we tend to be more reactionary than anything else. So if we know that this song is going to get played this fall at football games, let's just prepare ourselves mentally and not give it any energy. Because by giving it the energy, it's doing what its intended purpose was to do, which is to upset it. Don't be upset by it. Be like, it's one country song in the history of Earth. No one's going to die on this hill. Just stop playing the song. Ignore it. You know what? They play a song. Shit, play another song back.
Yeah.
Who cares? Stop giving people so much more. Stop giving people who don't deserve your power and energy, your power and energy.
And stop falling into the trap where they know to market.
You're going to react.
They're counting on pissing you off and getting you to react to it.
Yeah. To me, I'm like, pretty typical. It's unoriginal. Yeah. And it doesn't, as a woman of color, that song doesn't do anything to me. This guy means nothing to me. Like, so what difference does it make?
Yeah,
he's not going to be the first
this guy was
dog whistle guy. He's not going to be the last. And it's okay. Know who you are and focus what's important. This isn't it.
Yeah, thank you. And I might have cut you off there, so repeat that again. He's not
just focused on what's important. And this song ain't it. It's one song in the drop of the bucket of music since the beginning of time. The guy's selling records for a few weeks. We're going to hear it again. Who gives a shit? God bless him. He had one song under his belt. Nobody barely even heard of this guy before this.
Thank you.
Anyway.
Do you want to talk about Barbie?
Go ahead, Jay, because I know you want to talk about Barbie, a movie I have zero interest in, because I cannot believe that this society actually made time to make a movie about an inanimate object. But go ahead.
All right. Of course, this society made time to make a movie about an inanimate object that is a toy, because Mattel, the toy maker, created a production company to make movies about their toys so they could sell more toys, because that is late stage capitalism. And it's
and awesome. Now pink has taken over the world. Like no one's seen the color pink before. And I don't understand why people are so easily seduced by every little simple thing that happens out on this planet.
I mean, look, Hasbro created Hasbro Productions to make so they could make Transformers movies to sell more fucking Transformers. And Mattel made Mattel Productions so they could sell more toys. And it's gonna work. People are gonna go out and buy the new Barbies that they sell. But the Barbie movie is funny. It's got some poignant messages, and it's
my God. The last thing I want. Not only do I not want a Barbie movie, I definitely don't want a Barbie movie with messages in it. You got me fucked up. Ain't nobody want to see this movie, other than I guess the 800 billion people who went to see it. You got me fucked up. Good luck, Earth. Good luck, Earth. Good luck, Earth.
It's good.
I'm too busy watching podcasts on the Sound of Freedom, which is a documentary. It's actually a movie based on the life of a real federal agent who helps find trafficked children. So I'm sorry, Barbie did not woo me in the same way as something more meaningful did.
But let's talk about The Sound of Freedom, because and here's a great segue. Barbie was marketed excellently, and Sound of Freedom
was too
marketed excellently.
Yes, it was, because it had all this hype around. No one wants you to see this. No one wants you to see this. No one wants you to see this. And I was like, well, who's the no one? Because it's fucking everywhere.
Yeah. And you know what it is? So they're capitalizing on the knee-jerk reaction from the left, just like the knee-jerk reaction that we're predicting would try that in a small town. The knee-jerk reaction from people who write for very far leftist blogs like Jacobin. They're like, oh, The Sound of Freedom is just a QAnon movie, and it's gonna get people to it's a gateway drug to bring you into QAnon and blah, blah, blah. And the knee-jerk reaction to Sound of Freedom reminds me of the knee-jerk reaction to the Joker movie, where everybody said, oh, this movie's just gonna inspire mass shooters and stuff. And I don't know, they pulled that out of their ass completely. And no, there wasn't a mass shooting at Joker, just to put that out there. But no, there was a knee-jerk reaction from the left where everybody was like, this movie's going to inspire mass shootings. This movie's going to inspire violence against women, just based off the trailer alone. And it was the same people, the same voices on the far left who said that are saying that about this movie. This movie's going to, about Sound of Freedom, this movie's going to inspire you to join QAnon or whatever. No, it's just about a guy who wants to help out trafficked children. It's about
a Christian guy who wants to help trafficked children, and the fact that he gives up his federal secure job to go, headfirst basically into the depths of Hades to find the most horrific crimes occurring to the, most vulnerable amongst us. And I have a lot of respect for this guy. I'm not a big religious person myself, but when that man says that the only thing that he can attribute to help carrying him through some of these situations is God, I believe him.
Yeah, if he's deeply religious, and he believes God helped him with this, who are we to say whatever, right?
He said, like, it's nothing else.
There are a lot of people who attribute the great things that they were able to accomplish to divine inspiration, right? Nat Turner's slave revolt, he believed he got a message from God to lead that slave revolt, right?
I believe he did too.
Now this guy, people are saying, oh, he's embellishing, everything he did. Every based on a true story, in air quotes.
Every true story embellishes and takes fictional liberties and for dramatic purposes. They have to change names. There are like people in positions of power that are involved in these things that they're not going to release those names. I mean, shit, they didn't even release those names in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, and the bitch went to jail for fucking crimes, and yet we don't even know who the co-conspirators are, and we never will. So they're definitely not going to reveal all of that in this documentary. Besides, that's not the point. I think the point of the documentary,
it's not a documentary,
is to show the world how egregious child trafficking is, and that it has now overtaken the porn and drug industry as far as revenue.
How sure about that are we?
I'm sure about that. I can look it up, because drug use, you can only use the drug once, whereas a child can be raped 10 to 30 times a day.
Oh, that's fucked up. That's a very good point.
And then once they're done with them, they're using them to harvest for organs for people who are on wait lists for organs.
Yeah. Now, a couple of stats.
I'm not saying QAnon doesn't say crazy shit like this. I'm just saying, just because people are crazy doesn't mean every word that they say is crazy.
Yeah, there is no Q, just so y'all know. Right?
I'm not into any of that. But I mean, trafficking, human trafficking exists, child trafficking exists. Child slavery exists, and I don't give a shit who's saying it. It exists.
Yeah. So the movie just crossed the $100 million mark.
Sure did, as it should.
The movie actually was shot pre-pandemic, and the distribution rights, floated around. Eventually, Angel Productions picked it up. I believe Jim Caviezel also owns or is a co-owner or co-founder of Angel Productions. He's also the star of this movie. They picked it up, but then they needed a GoFundMe to actually pay for the distribution rights that they purchased, right? Mm-hmm. And they were able to get a bunch of people who are passionate about this. Many people.
Mira Sorvino is part of it. Yeah, she's been doing work with regard to trafficked children for quite some time. This is not her first movie on this topic.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the GoFundMe. So the point is, they there are some people that have given a lot of money to this movie already. So they got a GoFundMe from regular people to help fund the distribution of the movie. Then the movie got distributed and people had to buy tickets, of course. And what they did was they had a pay it forward campaign where if you want people to see this movie, you can obviously buy a ticket for yourself, but you can buy a ticket for someone else through the movie's website. And that goes into a pool of tickets that if somebody wants to see the movie but can't afford a ticket or whatever, they can enter to get one of those pay it forward tickets. And so like something like 30% or maybe even 40% of their revenue from July 4th weekend, where it was the number one movie in America on like the day of July 4th or whatever, beating the Indiana Jones movie that day.
It did beat the Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah, they pulled in like 12 or 17 million, and like I think like 5 or 6 of that 17 was from this pay it forward campaign, and it's only growing since then. So some things that I have read said about 40% of the movie's overall revenue has been this pay it forward campaign. And so that is why you see people on the left saying, hey, you know, I saw Sound of Freedom is sold out and I went into the theater and nobody was in there. Well, that's because like they probably bought out that theater for the pay it forward campaign, right? And nobody actually needed to go see it in that movie theater at that time who couldn't afford it, right? So it makes sense. It's not a conspiracy if when you see someone saying, oh, the movie theaters are empty, but they're saying it's sold out. It's the pay it forward campaign, which I think is genius because you're getting people to buy one ticket and then pay for another 2, 3, or 10.
Brilliant. Again, the marketing ideas that have been evolving over the years has been remarkable.
Yeah.
Well, 100%. I will make a point to see the Barbie movie. You make a point to see the Sound of Freedom movie, and we will come back and share with our audience our thoughts on that as well.
Yes. And at the end of both of those, we should come together and watch Don't Be a Menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood, because that movie is the one that put the nail on the head when it came to message.
Yes, indeed it did. Message.
Because that's the Barbie movie definitely has literally stops and is like message, and Sound of Freedom sounds like it does as well.
It does. So we will be inundated with messages, which we will be more than happy to share with you all on our next episode of Raw Food. No artificial flavoring or preservative.
Damn right.